You love these monsters, every single one of them. Herman's laugh, Lily's elegance, Grandpa's chaos, Eddie's pointy ears. For 2 seasons, they were the warmest family on television. Then the cameras stopped. And what happened next to the real people behind those costumes? Nobody warned you about that part. Fred Gwynne as Herman Munster. Let's start with the man who carried the whole show on his bolted-together shoulders. Frederick Hubbard Gwynne was born July 10, 1926 in New York City, 6'5", a serious actor who had spent years chasing Shakespeare and serious drama. What he got instead was 50 pounds of foam rubber, a bolt through his neck, and 3 hours in the makeup chair every single morning.
I'll never be able to go through the rest of my life with a face like this.
He lost up to 10 pounds per episode in sweat alone. He called the costume exhausting and bruising in interviews, and he showed up for 68 episodes without once complaining on the record. Here is what that sacrifice cost him.
My toe bone's connected to my foot bone. My foot bone's connected to my heel bone.
After the show ended, Hollywood couldn't see past the forehead. Every room he walked into, every audition, every pitch, directors saw Herman Munster. Not the Harvard man, not the trained stage actor, the monster. He spent years in a typecasting wilderness that would have broken most people. 2 divorces, 5 children, a quiet stretch where he channeled everything into writing children's books. Genuinely brilliant ones that nobody expected from a sitcom monster. Then, 1992, My Cousin Vinny, Judge Chamberlain Haller. No makeup, no foam rubber, no bolt. Just a razor-sharp actor in a courtroom delivering one of the most precise comedic performances in that entire decade.
Did you say Utes?
And finally proving what he had always been. He didn't get long to enjoy it. Pancreatic cancer took Fred Gwynne on July 2, 1993. He was 66 years old, barely 12 months past his greatest triumph. He left around $2 million. In his last interviews, he said he couldn't stop liking Herman, that there was something genuinely sweet about a monster who just wanted to be a good father.
Black or yellow or white, it doesn't matter. What does matter is the size of your heart.
The scariest-looking dad on television was, in real life, the gentlest man on the set. He waited decades for Hollywood to see what everyone around him already knew. Yvonne De Carlo as Lily Munster. Now here is where the story gets complicated in a way the studio never advertised. Margaret Yvonne Middleton was born September 1, 1922 in Vancouver. By the mid-50s, she was one of the most glamorous faces in Hollywood, dancing opposite Charlton Heston in The 10 Commandments.
I had done The 10 Commandments and other things that people remember.
Appearing on magazine covers, living the career that young actresses in 1955 dreamed of building. Then, the world collapsed. In 1955, she married stuntman Bob Morgan. In 1961, a train stunt went catastrophically wrong. Bob lost a leg. The surgeries were extensive. The rehabilitation was long. The medical bills stacked up in a way that the film industry, which had already started pulling back on her roles, was not going to help with. When Universal called with an offer to play a vampire wife on a monster sitcom, Yvonne De Carlo did not hesitate. She took it. Not for the art, not for the craft, to keep her family from drowning. She later said she did it to pay the bills. And there is a laugh in that line, but a wound running underneath it that she never fully dressed. What she made of it, though, is the part worth watching. Lily Munster became one of the most beloved characters in 60s television. The white streak, the floor-length gown, the way she looked at Herman like he was the most handsome man she had ever seen.
Your father is just naturally a sweet and kind man. Aren't you, pussycat?
I try to.
Yvonne played Lily with an elegance and warmth no script could have manufactured, and she held that monster family together with more dignity than most normal families on television managed. The marriage to Bob Morgan didn't survive. They divorced in 1973. She raised her 2 sons largely alone, fought her way back through Broadway, released a best-selling autobiography, and kept working in small roles until retiring in 1995. Yvonne De Carlo passed away January 8, 2007. She was 84 years old, heart failure following a stroke. The screen siren who once danced with the devil ended up the monster family's heart, and got there not through glamour, but through desperation and grace in equal measure. Al Lewis as Grandpa Munster. If Fred was the heart and Yvonne was the grace, Al Lewis was pure, beautiful chaos. And the real story is even wilder than anything Grandpa cooked up in that basement. He was born Abraham Munster on April 30th, 1923 in New York City. Before Hollywood, he had already been a street kid, a political activist, a basketball scout, and a vaudeville performer. The man contained multitudes, and all of them were loud. He had already worked alongside Fred Gwynne on Car 54, Where Are You? The chemistry between them wasn't written, it was real. Lifelong friends who genuinely made each other laugh. When the Munsters came along, putting them back together was less casting decision and more inevitability. As Grandpa, Al created a character children loved because he was the adult who refused to act like one. 136 years old, living in a basement, blowing things up, giving catastrophically bad advice, stealing every scene he was in.
Herman, you bum! Get your hands off my machine!
Al never resented the role the way Fred sometimes did. He loved it. He wore the cape to fan events for the rest of his life. But after the Munsters, Al Lewis did something that still makes people do a double take. He opened a restaurant, Grandpa's Bella Gente, a Munster-themed Italian restaurant in Greenwich Village, New York City, a genuine neighborhood institution. He once joked he made more money from pasta than from residuals. Knowing what the cast was paid, that was almost certainly true. He hosted a late-night radio show. He became a firebrand political activist. And in 1998, at 75 years old, Al Lewis ran for governor of New York on the Green Party ticket. Grandpa Munster, gubernatorial candidate, New York State. He didn't win, but he earned enough votes to secure the Green Party's ballot line for the next election cycle, which was precisely his goal all along. He played that campaign the same way he played Grandpa, loud, tactical, and with a permanent wink. Al Lewis died on February 3, 2006. He was 82 years old. No scandal, no tragic fade. He went out exactly as he lived, noisy, opinionated, and entirely on his own terms. Grandpa looked 136. He acted like a mischievous 12-year-old, and he lived more fully than almost anyone else in this story. Beverly Owen as Marilyn Munster. 13 episodes, a lifetime of choices made in them. Beverly Jane Ogg was born May 13, 1937, in Ottumwa, Iowa. She arrived in Hollywood with the same dream as 1,000 other young women, and she got further than most. She landed Marilyn Munster, the plain niece the family pitied and the audience knew was beautiful.
I'd like you to meet my date. This is Jack. Oh, Uncle Herman.
A clever inversion, and Beverly played it with a warmth that made the joke land without cruelty. But she was miserable. The hours were grinding, the work was relentless, and she had fallen in love with a man named John Stone, and she wanted a real life more than she wanted a television one. After 13 episodes, she told the producers she was done. She walked away from one of the hottest shows on network television to get married, and then lived exactly the life she chose.
I got a call to come and do a pilot, and I said, but I'm in love with someone in New York. I don't want to move to... Well, just come out and do the pilot, and I did.
She and John Stone had 2 daughters. What most people don't know is what John Stone went on to build. He became one of the creators of Sesame Street. So the woman who played the Munsters' plain niece married a man who helped shape children's television for generations. And she did it while no one was watching. When the marriage ended after 10 years, she didn't return to acting. She went back to school, earned a master's degree in history, became a college professor. She never attended a Munsters convention, never did a reunion. Not out of bitterness, she simply chose a different path and stayed on it. Later in life, she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Beverly Owen died on February 21, 2019. She was 81 years old. 13 episodes was all she needed. The rest of her life she built entirely on her own terms, and it turned out to be a remarkable one. Butch Patrick as Eddie Munster. We saved this one for last, because this is the one that earns it. Patrick Allen Lilly was born August 2, 1953 in Inglewood, California. He was 11 years old when he became Eddie Munster. The little werewolf boy with the widow's peak and the pointy ears who just wanted to be a regular kid, and who beat out 500 other boys to play him. He didn't even get there through his own audition. His sister was signed with a modeling agency. Through that connection, Butch got in front of the right people. The original child actor from the pilot was replaced. Suddenly, an 11-year-old from Inglewood was the most famous little monster on television. He loved it. He loved the wolf makeup. He loved the cast. He had the kind of set experience that child actors are supposed to have. Genuinely happy, genuinely cared for, a surrogate big sister in Pat Priest, and a pair of adult co-stars who treated the kid like family. The trouble came later. It always comes later for child stars. After the Munsters ended, the work slowed. The 70s arrived and something darker took hold. Butch Patrick fell into drug addiction. Not the glamorous rock star kind, but the quiet, spiraling, invisible kind that nobody writes headlines about. The kind where you watch a decade disappear and realize one day that the phone has stopped ringing and you're not sure exactly when it happened. It swallowed the 70s. It swallowed most of the 80s. The little boy who had made millions of children laugh was fighting a war in private, and almost no one was watching. And then came the cancer diagnosis. Prostate cancer. The kind of news that forces a man to decide, clearly and without evasion, what his life is actually going to mean. Butch chose to fight. He went to rehab in 2010. He got sober. He stayed sober. And then he did something that most people in his position never do. He stopped running from the thing that had defined him and walked straight back toward it. He didn't just accept the Eddie Munster legacy. He built a life around it. A Munster-themed business. A replica of the Dragula, Grandpa's coffin dragster. A full convention circuit where he shows up, shakes hands, takes photos, tells stories, and signs autographs for people who have loved Eddie Munster since before they could fully read. He does it with a joy that is completely, unmistakably genuine. Today, Butch Patrick is 72 years old, sober, still touring, still Eddie. The little werewolf boy grew up, fell down as far as a person can fall, and got back up. Not with a dramatic Hollywood comeback, not with a film that redeemed his legacy, just with stubbornness and sobriety and a genuine love for the character and the fans who never stopped loving him. Some recoveries are quiet. Some are just a man showing up every weekend at a convention, still wearing the pointy ears, still meaning it. That's the one that stays with you. 2 seasons, 70 episodes, and the real lives cost far more than any of it was paid for. Fred Gwynne, who waited 30 years for one great role and didn't get nearly long enough to enjoy it. Yvonne De Carlo, who took a vampire part to pay hospital bills and accidentally created one of television's most beloved characters. Al Lewis, who ran for governor at 75 and lost on purpose. Beverly Owen, who walked away from fame for love and never looked back. Pat Priest, who beat cancer quietly at 65 and is still getting fan mail at 89. And Butch Patrick, who fell apart, came back, and became the biggest fan the show ever had. They were monsters on screen. Behind it, they were just people, carrying the ordinary, crushing weight of real lives that no costume could protect them from. 1313 Mockingbird Lane was never just a set. For the people who lived there, it was the best years and sometimes the hardest years rolled into one. And 60 years later, it still lives in a room in your memory you forgot you had. Share this with someone who grew up watching. They deserve to know who was really behind the makeup.